Hey everyone, let's jump right in. Today we're exploring a genetic capsule analysis about something that is fundamentally restructuring the world map as we know it. This is an explainer of a policy that, honestly, sounds pretty dry on paper, but is quietly rewriting the rules of the entire global economy. We're talking about CBAM and the Great Industrial Reset.
The biggest industrial reset since globalization began. That is the central, highly provocative claim made by this analysis. And honestly, it's a massive statement. Just think about the last 30 or 40 years, how supply chains literally stretched all the way across the globe, how manufacturing hubs just exploded overnight, and how everything we bought got cheaper because it was assembled thousands of miles away. Well, the source material argues that this era we all just lived through, it's coming to an abrupt end. The traditional trade models that literally built our modern world are being forcefully retired.
Section 1. The Great Industrial Reset.
Okay, so to understand why this massive reset is happening right now, we really have to look at the breaking point of localized carbon taxes. For years, you had individual countries trying to impose their own taxes to lower emissions. But what actually happened? Well, it just led to what economists call carbon leakage. It's kind of like squeezing a balloon. If country A makes it super expensive to pollute, the factory just packs up, moves over to country B where it's free to pollute, and sets up shop there. Global emissions didn't actually go down, the pollution just relocated. The source highlights that this localized approach completely failed, which meant a drastic worldwide paradigm shift became absolutely necessary.
Moving on to Section 2, unpacking the CBAM acronym. I want you to ask yourself for a second, what exactly is CBAM? On the surface, I know, it sounds like just another piece of mundane alphabet soup bureaucracy. But the source material actually positions this acronym as a Trojan horse for massive global change. It is the very mechanism enforcing this new industrial reset.
So CBAM stands for the Carbon Border Adjustment Mechanism. Now, don't think of it as just a standard import tax. Think of it more like a literal toll booth for carbon emissions right at the border. It's a way to calculate and strictly penalize the carbon footprint of imported goods. If you want to sell a product into a market that uses CBAM, you aren't just paying a standard customs fee anymore. You are paying a fee based directly on how much pollution was generated to create that specific product.
Let's ground this in reality for a second. Imagine a massive cargo ship pulling into port. Step 1, the goods arrive at the border. Let's say it's a giant shipment of steel. Step 2, the carbon footprint of that exact batch of steel is calculated. And we're not talking about a broad estimate here. We mean the specific emissions released by the factory that forged it. Step 3, the tariff is applied. If that steel was made using clean renewable energy, the tariff is extremely low, maybe even zero. But if it was made in a factory burning coal, the tariff is going to be massive. The financial penalty is directly tied to the carbon footprint.
Section 3. Rewriting globalization rules.
You see, this completely flips the math of international trade on its head. Under the old rules, what we can call Globalization 1.0, the absolute ultimate goal was the cheap labor metric. Companies moved manufacturing wherever human labor was cheapest, basically ignoring the carbon cost of shipping goods back across the ocean. But under the new rules, the CBAM reset, the ultimate metric is the carbon footprint. Chasing cheap labor simply doesn't make financial sense anymore if a massive carbon penalty at the border completely wipes out your savings. The GeneCapsule analysis makes this crystal clear. Clean energy availability is what dictates trade flows now, not cheap labor.
All right, Section 4, supply chain ripple effects. When you neutrally compare the viability of traditional supply chains under this new mechanism, the disruption is honestly staggering. Historically, highly polluting offshoring regions thrived simply because of low cost. But under CBAM, those exact same hubs are suddenly going to face massive, almost insurmountable financial penalties. Now contrast that with clean energy localized manufacturing. Even if the human labor costs are way higher there, avoiding that carbon penalty makes the final goods significantly more competitive. The entire geopolitical map of who produces what is literally being redrawn based on the power grid of the manufacturing country.
So let's quickly summarize these cascading impacts. First, it completely upends traditional offshoring. The 1990s playbook, it's pretty much dead. Second, it forces a massive physical relocation of supply chains. Factories literally have to move to where the power is clean. And third, maybe most profoundly, it replaces cheap labor with clean energy priorities. Every single link in the global supply chain, from mining the raw materials right down to final assembly, is being forced to adapt to this new mathematical reality, or they risk being completely priced out of the market.
I just want to pause on this number for a second, just the number 1. In our example earlier, this represents a single ton of steel. Now, tracking the emissions of just this 1 ton is complex enough, right?
But under a fully realized CBAM, the global trade system will have to track the exact carbon emissions of every single item, every ton of cement, every shipment of fertilizer that crosses a border. The bureaucratic effort required to pull this off is absolutely mind-boggling.
Finally, Section 5, the next era of trade.
If you take away just one single thing from this explainer today, let it be this exact phrase: carbon dictates trade flows. That is the overarching thesis of the GeneCapsule analysis. We are definitively exiting the era where the cost of human labor drove the global economy. We're entering an entirely new economic reality where carbon is literally the ultimate currency. If you have clean energy, you have an industrial future. If you rely on dirty energy, you are going to be walled off by these border adjustments.
Which leaves us staring down one really massive final question. Are we actually ready for the end of globalization as we know it? Because this transition isn't just some minor policy update. It's a fundamental rewiring of how the entire planet does business. The CBAM reset is already in motion, and it's going to touch pretty much everything around us. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep learning, keep asking those big questions, and I highly encourage you to keep exploring how this new carbon economy is going to shape all of our futures.